is about to.
You fall in love with your partner, who betrays you, he dies in your arms.
I saw him last night.
Be honest, have you ever started a sci-fi or fantasy series thinking you'd watch one episode, and suddenly it's 3 a.m. and you're way too emotionally invested?
Have to go. Now, Cooper.
Hey, I'm Jenny, and today we're counting down the 10 greatest sci-fi fantasy series of all time, from 2000 to 2025. These are the shows that didn't just entertain us, they pulled us into entire worlds, broke our hearts a little, and raised the bar for what TV could be.
Where he is...
You have always been a prisoner.
Before we dive in, quick favor, if you love discovering great movies and shows, hit subscribe and give this video a like. It genuinely helps me keep making videos you'll enjoy, and I really appreciate it. Alright, let's start the countdown.
Is about to.
You fall in love with your partner, who betrays you, he dies in your arms.
I saw him last night.
At number 10, we're starting with a series that quietly sneaks up on you, and then completely takes over your brain. Fringe. At first glance, it feels like a classic sci-fi procedural. Strange cases. Unexplained phenomena. Creepy science experiments gone wrong. Each episode throws you into a new mystery that feels unsettling, weird, and just grounded enough to feel possible. But then something shifts. As the seasons unfold, Fringe reveals it's not just about strange events, it's about parallel worlds, fractured timelines, and the devastating consequences of playing God. What once felt episodic slowly transforms into a deeply emotional, serialized story about choice, sacrifice, and love that crosses realities. The heart of the show lies in its characters. A brilliant but broken scientist trying to atone for past mistakes. A son who may or may not be exactly who he seems. And a team caught in the middle of a conflict that could erase entire worlds from existence. What makes Fringe so special is how it balances intellect with emotion. The science gets wild, alternate universes, shared consciousness, reality collapsing in on itself, but the story always comes back to the people. Their guilt, their loyalty, and the cost of the decisions they make. By the final seasons, Fringe becomes something surprisingly powerful, a sci-fi fantasy series that's just as interested in heartbreak as it is in mind-bending ideas. And the ending? Earned, emotional, and unforgettable. It may not always get mentioned first when people talk about all-time greats. But once you've watched it, Fringe never really leaves you. A perfect way to kick off this countdown.
And we paved it.
Someday, things gonna change.
At number 9, we're stepping into a future that feels uncomfortably real, the Expanse. This isn't a shiny, optimistic version of space travel. Humanity has spread across the solar system, but the old problems never went away. Earth is overcrowded. Mars is militarized. And the people living in the asteroid belt are treated like expendable labor, caught in the middle of forces far bigger than them. What starts as a missing person investigation slowly explodes into something massive. Political tension rises. Ancient technology is uncovered. And suddenly, the fate of the entire solar system is hanging by a thread. What makes the Expanse stand out is its realism. Space is dangerous. Physics matters. One bad decision can kill everyone in the room. There are no easy heroes here, just people trying to survive in a system that's constantly on the brink of collapse. The series balances large-scale sci-fi ideas with deeply personal stories. Captains struggling with responsibility. Leaders making impossible choices. Ordinary people forced into extraordinary situations with no clear right answer. As the seasons progress, the scope grows wider and darker. The mysteries become bigger. The stakes become heavier. And the show never underestimates its audience, it trusts you to keep up, to pay attention, and to sit with moral ambiguity. By the end, The Expanse feels less like a TV show and more like a fully realized future, one that's tense, political, and frighteningly plausible. It's smart sci-fi, serious sci-fi, and absolutely deserving of its place on this list.
Done to you, it's dangerous and we really have to go. Now, Cooper.
At number 8, we have a series that doesn't take you to distant galaxies or far-off planets. It looks you straight in the eye and says, this could be your life, Black Mirror. Each episode tells a completely different story, but they're all connected by one chilling idea. Technology doesn't need to be evil to ruin us, it just needs to be slightly misused. The worlds in Black Mirror always feel close. Too close. Social media systems that decide your value. Implants that record every memory. Dating algorithms that control your emotions. None of it feels impossible, it feels like the next update waiting to happen. What makes the show so powerful is how human the stories are. The technology is never the real villain. It's jealousy, obsession, insecurity, the desperate need for validation. Black Mirror simply hands those traits a futuristic tool and lets the consequences spiral out of control. Some episodes hit like a punch to the chest, emotional, tragic, deeply personal. Others are cold, cynical, and terrifying in a quieter way. And then there are episodes that leave you sitting in silence, questioning your phone, your habits, maybe even yourself. There's no comfort here. No long-term heroes to cling to. Each episode stands alone, drops you into a fully realized future, and then pulls the floor out from under you. By the time the credits roll, the damage is already done. What really earns Black Mirror its place on this list is its impact. It didn't just entertain, it changed how people talk about technology. The phrase, "this feels like a Black Mirror episode," became part of everyday language, and that says everything. It's pure speculative sci-fi. No fantasy. No magic. Just humans, machines, and consequences. Unsettling. Thought-provoking. And impossible to forget. That's why Black Mirror locks in the number 8 spot. At number 7, we have a series that completely changed how we watch television, Lost. What starts as a survival story quickly becomes something much bigger. After a plane crashes on a mysterious island, the survivors are forced to work together, uncover secrets, and stay alive. But almost immediately, it's clear this island isn't normal. There are strange noises in the jungle, symbols carved into trees, underground bunkers, and questions that never stop coming. What made Lost so revolutionary was its storytelling. Instead of just focusing on what happens next, the show dives into who these people were before the crash. Through flashbacks, we learn their regrets, their trauma, and the moments that shaped them, making every decision on the island feel personal and emotionally loaded. As the seasons progress, the series blends science fiction, fantasy, and mythology in bold ways. Time travel, destiny, parallel paths, and ancient forces all collide, turning the island into a place where science and faith are constantly at war. And yet, at its core, Lost is always about the characters. Their relationships. Their mistakes. And the idea that some people are meant to find each other, no matter how impossible the circumstances. The mysteries were endless, the theories were wild, and watching week to week felt like a shared global experience. Whether you loved every answer or debated them endlessly, there's no denying the cultural impact Lost had on modern television. It proved that genre TV could be emotional, ambitious, and deeply human, long before streaming made that the norm. For better or worse, Lost changed the game. And that alone earns it the number 7 spot.
Oh. Can you see me? I wanted to talk to you.
At number 6, we have a sci-fi series that felt like a crime show at first, and then slowly revealed itself as something much more unsettling, Person of Interest. The premise is deceptively simple. A mysterious billionaire creates an artificial intelligence capable of predicting violent crimes before they happen. The system identifies people involved, victims or perpetrators, but leaves out the details. No context. No explanations. Just names, and the clock ticking down. At the beginning, it plays like a procedural. One case at a time. Save the person. Stop the crime. But then the truth sets in. The machine doesn't just see crimes, it sees everything. Every call. Every message. Every movement. And once that kind of power exists, the real question isn't can it be used, it's who controls it. What makes Person of Interest such great sci-fi is how grounded it feels. There's no flashy future tech. No distant timeline. This world looks exactly like ours, which makes it terrifying. Mass surveillance, predictive algorithms, artificial intelligence quietly making decisions for humanity. All of it feels less like fiction and more like a warning. As the series evolves, the scope explodes. Competing AIs emerge. Governments weaponize information. Ordinary people are caught in invisible wars they don't even know exist. And the show transforms into a full-blown sci-fi thriller about free will, privacy, and whether humans still have control over their own future. But at its core, Person of Interest is still deeply human. It's about people trying to do the right thing in a system designed to treat them as data points. About choosing compassion when logic says it's inefficient. And about the cost of protecting others when no one will ever know what you sacrificed. By its final seasons, the show becomes shockingly bold, emotional, intense, and far more relevant today than when it first aired. It doesn't just ask what happens when machines become smarter than us, it asks whether we're already letting them decide who matters. Quietly brilliant, chillingly prophetic, and absolutely deserving of the number 6 spot.
Will is missing. I don't know where he is.
At number 5, we have a series that turned nostalgia into a full-blown sci-fi fantasy phenomenon, Stranger Things. On the surface, it starts small. A quiet town. A group of kids on bikes. And one strange disappearance that feels like it should have a simple explanation. It doesn't. As the story unfolds, we're pulled into a world of secret government experiments, alternate dimensions, and monsters that should not exist. The Upside Down becomes a place of pure nightmare fuel, dark, decaying, and dangerously close to spilling into the real world. What makes Stranger Things so powerful is how it balances genres. It's sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and coming of age all at once. One moment you're watching kids joke around in a basement, the next, you're bracing for something unspeakable to crawl out of the shadows. But the real magic of the series is its characters. Friendships feel genuine. Loss hits hard. And watching these kids grow up while facing threats no one should ever have to face gives the show real emotional weight. The stakes aren't just about saving the world, they're about protecting each other. As the seasons progress, the scope expands dramatically. The threats get darker. The consequences get heavier. And the show isn't afraid to let its world, and its characters, change permanently. Stranger Things didn't just revive love for sci-fi fantasy on TV, it became a cultural moment. Iconic music. Memorable monsters, and scenes that stick with you long after the episode ends. It's thrilling, emotional, and endlessly rewatchable. And that's why it earns the number 5 spot on this list.
You have always been a prisoner.
What if I told you?
At number 4, we have a series that doesn't just tell a sci-fi story, it questions consciousness itself. Westworld. The premise feels almost simple at first. A futuristic theme park where wealthy guests can live out their wildest fantasies inside a meticulously crafted Wild West, populated entirely by lifelike androids known as hosts. The guests can do anything they want. The hosts remember nothing. Until they start to remember. As the cracks begin to show, Westworld transforms into a philosophical sci-fi fantasy about free will, identity, and what it actually means to be alive. The hosts aren't just machines, they're beings trapped in loops, reliving trauma over and over, slowly becoming aware that their reality is a lie. What makes Westworld so gripping is how layered it is. Timelines overlap, perspectives shift, conversations take on entirely new meanings once you realize who's speaking, and when. The show actively challenges the viewer, daring you to keep up. But beneath all the puzzles and twists is something deeply unsettling. Watching artificial beings suffer for human entertainment forces an uncomfortable question. If something can feel pain, fear, and love, do we still get to call it a thing? The series blends futuristic technology with mythic storytelling, creators playing God, creations seeking freedom, and a world where memory becomes both a curse and a weapon. Every revelation feels earned, and every choice has consequences that ripple outward. At its peak, Westworld wasn't just must-watch TV, it was conversation-starting TV. The kind that had people pausing episodes, rewinding scenes, and arguing theories long into the night. Complex, beautiful, unsettling, and absolutely deserving of the number 4 spot. At number 3, we have a series that reminded everyone why sci-fi fantasy adventures feel so magical in the first place, The Mandalorian. Set in the outer edges of the galaxy, this story follows a lone bounty hunter living by an ancient warrior code. He's quiet, guarded, and built for survival, until one unexpected mission changes everything. That mission introduces a small, mysterious child with an enormous destiny, and suddenly, this hardened warrior is forced into the role of protector. What makes The Mandalorian so special is its simplicity. The show strips sci-fi fantasy down to its roots, a lone gunslinger, dangerous worlds, and moral choices made in silence. Each episode feels like a chapter from an old myth, just set among stars instead of castles. The series blends space western vibes with classic fantasy storytelling. Ancient traditions feel almost magical. Advanced technology looks like relics from a forgotten age. And every planet feels like its own self-contained legend. But at the heart of the show is connection. Watching a man who's lived his entire life behind a helmet slowly learn how to care for someone else gives the series its emotional core. It's about honor, found family, and choosing compassion in a brutal universe. Visually, The Mandalorian is cinematic in every sense. Sweeping landscapes, practical effects, and iconic imagery make it feel more like a film series than traditional television. And its influence on modern sci-fi TV is impossible to ignore. It didn't just expand a universe, it proved that smaller, character-driven stories can feel just as epic. A modern sci-fi fantasy classic. And a well-earned number 3. At number 2, we have a sci-fi series that takes one simple idea and turns it into something quietly terrifying, Severance. In this world, a powerful corporation offers its employees a revolutionary procedure. Your memories are surgically divided. When you're at work, you remember nothing about your personal life. When you leave, you remember nothing about your job. 2 versions of you. 1 body. No overlap. At first, it sounds almost convenient. No stress from work bleeding into your home life. No personal pain following you into the office. A perfect balance. But Severance asks the question no one wants to answer: what happens to the version of you that never gets to leave? Inside the office, employees live in an endless loop. They work. They don't know why. They don't know what their jobs truly accomplish. And they can never go home. For them, existence is fluorescent lights, strange rules, and a corporate culture that feels more like a cult than a company. What makes Severance such powerful sci-fi is how restrained it is. There are no lasers. No flying cars. The technology is minimal, almost invisible. And that's what makes it horrifying. This future doesn't feel far away. It feels like a policy update away. The show builds tension through atmosphere. Long hallways that never seem to end. Smiles that last a second too long. Conversations that feel friendly until they suddenly aren't. Every detail is precise, controlled, and deeply unsettling. But beneath the mystery is something profoundly human. This is a story about identity. About consent. About exploitation. About whether a version of you created for labor still deserves dignity, freedom, and choice. Watching the Inia characters slowly become self-aware, realizing they are trapped, is both heartbreaking and enraging. As the series unfolds, Severance transforms from an eerie workplace drama into a full-blown sci-fi thriller. Secrets unravel. Power structures crack. And the line between compliance and rebellion becomes dangerously thin. And finally, at number 1, we have a sci-fi series that proves you don't need prophecies, chosen ones, or magical powers to tell a powerful, unforgettable story. This is Andor. Set in a galaxy ruled by an expanding authoritarian empire, Andor strips sci-fi down to its rawest elements: surveillance, oppression, fear, and the slow, painful birth of rebellion. There are no easy victories here. No heroic speeches that fix everything. Just people being pushed, until they can't take it anymore. The story follows Cassian Andor, not as a legend, but as an ordinary man trying to survive. He's not brave. He's not noble. He's cautious, angry, and deeply aware of how dangerous the system around him is. And that's exactly why his journey matters. What makes Andor exceptional sci-fi is how grounded it feels. The technology is everywhere, but it's not flashy. It's used to monitor, track, control. Cameras watch constantly. Bureaucracy crushes individuality. Entire populations live under rules designed to keep them obedient, tired, and afraid. This future doesn't feel distant, it feels familiar. As the series unfolds, Andor becomes less about one man and more about how rebellion actually starts. Not with hope, but with injustice. With stolen moments. With small acts of defiance that slowly grow into something unstoppable. Every storyline carries weight. Prison systems designed for efficiency over humanity. Corporate security obsessed with control. Ordinary citizens forced to decide whether survival is worth the cost of silence. Every choice feels dangerous. Every conversation feels like it could be overheard. And then there are the speeches. Quiet, devastating moments where characters finally say out loud what the Empire has taken from them: their freedom, their dignity, their future. These scenes don't rely on action. They rely on truth. And they hit harder because of it. By the time the season reaches its climax, the transformation is complete. Not just for Cassian, but for everyone involved. Lines are crossed. Masks come off. And rebellion stops being an idea, it becomes inevitable. It shows how systems fall. how resistance is born, and how even the smallest acts can echo louder than empires expect. And that's why Andor stands as the greatest sci-fi series of this era, and earns the #1 spot. So those were the 10 greatest sci-fi fantasy series of all time, the shows that didn't just entertain us, but completely pulled us into their worlds. If you love getting lost in big stories, unforgettable characters, and shows that leave you thinking long after they end, make sure you're subscribed here at Watch with Jenny. We've got plenty more waiting. Let me know in the comments which series you'd put at #1, and which one you're ready to rewatch right now. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time.